sister. How are you?
Om Shanti, brother. I'm fine. What about you?
Yeah, I'm fine too, sister. So today we are going to see the Old Testament of Bible, 1 Chronicle, 21st chapter. So we are going to cover 21 to 29 chapters.
Yeah.
So, but most of the chapters will have nothing but alerting task to individual groups, except the first and the last chapter. So that has more messages than what is revealed on the surface. So here, uh, in the first uh, verse, it is mentioned Satan designing evil against Israel, put Da- David's mind. Second different stage. Uh, the impulse to take the number of Israel. So David is asking his servant to take the count of Israelites. Before that, he was involving in several wars, and he was obviously succeeding in all wars because God was on his side. Because he's
He's
a
a very beloved son of God,
beloved
and
son of God. Yeah. So according to Bible and Quran, God supports war, but that is not God's way. That's Satan's way. But still, it even in Hinduism, it is mentioned God shows how to wage war against Kauravas. So
mm,
that's the mother of all religions. So all the sons and daughters will carry the same traits. So that's the reason we are saying the wars, but that doesn't represent the physical war between humans, but the war,
mm,
internal war that happens within us to destroy the vices, lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego.
mm,
So, but here uh, David asked his servant to take the count of all Israelites,
mm,
take the count of everybody. But
mm,
servant says, no, it is against the will of God. But still he insists because David is the king. Obviously, his servant has to obey him. So he takes the count. But he doesn't like this idea of taking the count, so he even leaves some counts. Now God gets
Joab,
yes.
Joab is a very obedient servant to God. That is why
Oh
he disliked to take census of Israel.
yeah, that's
That
true.
is why he is denying
Mm,
by asking so many questions to David. But he is obsessed with Saturn.
yeah, that's
David is obsessed with Saturn. That is why he want to take census of Israel.
super. But now after taking the census, God gets really angry, and he says through one messenger that you will be punished. You have three choices. First,
Yes.
you will have no enough food for 3 years. Severe drought will be there. And
Yes.
second, uh, for 3 months, there will be intense war where your haters will have the upper hand, and you
Mm.
will have to live
Sword
in
of
hiding.
enemy.
Yeah, live in
Yes.
hiding. And the third choice is just for
Pandemic.
3 days, you will have intense pandemic. So it will take many lives.
Yes.
So now, before getting into this, this has a serious message, and even before that, is taking census against the will of God, is that a sinful act? Is it not ridiculous? Just like in the beginning, God gets angry just by eating Adam's apple. Sorry, apple. Apple in the
Adam's
Eden's
apple is
garden.
different and apple
Different
is
from,
different.
yeah. So in the Eden's garden, just because he eats an apple, God gets so furious that he drives him and his wife away from the garden. So is it so sinful to eat some fruit that gives him the knowledge to differentiate between right and wrong? Is Does it make any sense? But people, when I ask several Christians, they say uh, actually eating apple is not a big issue, but he is disobeying God's will. That's why he gets angry. So they are convincing themselves like that. So what version have you heard, sister, from Muslim and Christian brothers and sisters?
I don't understand what you're talking right now.
About
Uh,
eating that apple, how do they
uh,
justify themselves that it is justifiable that God gets angry in eating that apple? Because it's not justifiable. It's not at all a sin to eat an apple, especially if it
it's
gives the,
already a forbidden apple, and they took it. It is already a forbidden apple,
yeah.
and Eve took it and just threw everything on Adam. She just to say, um, she how to say எப்படி சொல்றதுங்க?
Actually, Satan convinces them that if you eat that apple, you will be getting the knowledge that God possesses, and God doesn't want you to have that. So it give
Ah,
you can differentiate between right and wrong.
yes,
So is that a sinful act to know to differentiate between right and wrong?
no,
No way, right?
no.
So that's a big ridicule. Uh, just like that, even here, taking senses, how can that be a sin? How can that trigger God into anger? But if we know the answer for this, we will get the answer for that. That's why
They
I'm.
lied.
Hmm.
They lied in front of God. That triggers God's anger.
No,
They
it's
lied. They disobeyed God
disobeyed
because
God.
of yes.
Okay, but God is not. God actually forgives even David's sin that he was lusting after somebody's wife, and also he kills her husband. God even forgives him. But eating apple is more sinful than that. It's not, right? So likewise, taking count, how can that be a sin? Because the answer lies. Even I got so uh, thoughtful about this while I was taking the Tamil version. I didn't get the answer, so I just ignored it, saying that God gets angry. That's it. So he needs some reason. So this is just a reason. That's how I explained in Tamil version. But now I got the answer.
Uh-huh.
He gets angry. Actually, it's not about God getting angry because he never gets angry. He is ever loving. But it is sinful because now he is boasting himself of his army by taking the count. See how many people are there. So he is proud of his physical wealth and human counts. So that
Mm.
is sinful because here the war is nothing but the war against the vices. So for that, God teaches us uh, a very simple method to wash away our sins by being in remembrance of God. But no religion has ever revealed how God looks like because they were not the words of God. So that's why we
Mm.
get so confused when God asks everybody to murder each other like that. So they are not words of God. God is just one. He comes only once in the end to give the knowledge to enter heaven because soon after God comes, this world we live in, gets destroyed. That is, it gets renewed into heaven. So that's when we need the knowledge to enter heaven. But Jesus Christ came before the Christianity was found. It makes sense
Mhm.
because he is, after all, the founder of Christianity. Muhammad comes before the establishment of Islam, which also makes sense because he is the founder of Islam. But God is not the founder of any religion, but he gives us the knowledge to enter heaven because it is his creation. Only he knows how to enter heaven, how everybody who resides in heaven will be like. God says everybody there will not have any body consciousness. They will have soul conscious all the time. That is, the soul shines like a tiny star in between the eyebrows, which is why Hindus apply tilak here. So India was heaven for the first 2,500 years, which is why Hindus worship those residents of heaven as deities because they were filled with divine qualities. They are also humans just like us. Actually, we were deities in the beginning. After taking several rebirths, when we enter hell, we become humans, which means we start committing sins. While in heaven, we didn't commit any sin because we were not body conscious, but we were soul conscious. So,
Mm.
body is just like a dress for the soul, right? So that's why it is mentioned in Bible that they were created naked. They have no sense of their body. As soon as they eat that fruit, they become conscious of their body, which means they become body conscious. So they are not
Mm.
eligible to be in heaven. They are not driven out by God out of heaven. Instead, this world itself becomes hell, which was heaven in the beginning. When you become body conscious, then you get addicted to sensual pleasures. Then these five vices, lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. So it slowly becomes hell. So this is what is happening. So here they were like a newborn child. They didn't know what is right and what is wrong because whatever they do, they were right. So they had no knowledge of right and wrong there. So that's why there were law of karma was not in work there. But when they reach hell after the first 2,500 years, they become body conscious. Now, even though they fall for lust, they know they are doing something wrong. Don't we know that we are doing wrong when we get angry? We know it, right? When we do something out of attachment in favor of one child, in favor of our child, we know what we are doing is wrong. So before that,
Mm.
they had no idea because they were not, they didn't have that attachment. They didn't have lust, anger, greed, ego. So that's why they were like a newborn child. That's why the newborn child will not have dress, right? So that's why it
Mm.
is mentioned in Bible they were without dress. But it doesn't mean in heaven they were nude. They will be clothed in very high quality dress and they will be decorated with high quality golden and diamond jewels. They were not body conscious. That's it. Now, here it is only out of body consciousness. In heaven, we were constantly blissful, not because we were living in palaces made of golden bricks, not because everyone around us were beautiful, not because we had several wives. Actually, we didn't have several wives, only one for one. That was the rule of the heaven. Actually, they didn't even lust their own wife. It is when wife and husband thought of having a baby, the wife gets pregnant. So there is no question of any physical contact to get pregnant in heaven. That's why they are being worshipped now. So God
Mm.
says in the end that you were so pure, you are now being worshipped. Now it is time to become worthy of worship, not as worshipper anymore. So that's why in Bible and Quran it is repeatedly mentioned, especially in the Old Testament, that uh, God gets angry when you worship some other god. That is the path of devotion. It applies both to Islam and Christianity as well, because they all belong to the human dictates. Only humans created those religions, whether it's Hinduism or Christianity or Islam or Buddhism or Sikh. Everything belongs to the path of devotion. That is the path of humans. Now you need to give that up, because the reason you need them was because you got addicted to these five vices, started committing sins, out of which, as a consequence, you are getting punished in the form of diseases, poverty, natural calamities. That's when you start worshiping God to get to save yourself. God now says the difference between right and wrong. When you were soul conscious, whatever you did were right. After you become
Mm.
body conscious, whatever you do, even if you open your eye and see somebody, it's sinful, because you are seeing the body, not the soul. Soul is the living thing, living being, not this body. This is perishable, this is imperishable. So you need to consider yourself to be the soul again. This is the knowledge God gives. So this is the path of knowledge. And also it has another meaning. Actually, Christians and Muslims are usually they don't take this knowledge. Well, there are exceptions, but mostly they reject it. So that's what they say. You need not know the difference between right and wrong, because anyway you are not going to go to heaven. So that's in a way not the word of God, but the word of Satan. So only God gives this knowledge. So they don't listen to anything other than Bible. Christians. Muslims, they don't listen to anything other than Quran. But anyway, they are our brothers. That's the reason we use this tactic to give this knowledge of God, because they are sons and daughters of God. Everybody has the right to enter heaven. Whether or not they are going to accept it or not, it is their fortune. But it is our duty to give this knowledge to our fellow brothers and sisters, no matter what faith they belong to. So now God says to give up everything, because we are at the brink of destruction. If you have attachment to your mother, father, spouse, child, or even your own body or any wealth or possession, you will be suffering when it is taken away from you. God doesn't want his kids to suffer any pain, because we are the direct children of God. If we cry, that's an insult to God. How can a child of God cry? Right? We can't cry. Because what do we have to cry? Because God gives us this secret. It is because you are body conscious, you are suffering the pain when somebody dies in your family. But don't see them as the body, see them as the soul. Soul is always here. It just takes birth after birth. Of course, it takes only human body, but it can be male or female alternately. So, if you have love for the soul, there is no reason to cry, because anyway it's going to be here. You just don't know in which body it is there. That's it. But it is here. What is there to cry? And if you cry because they are taking care of you, that's ignorance. Because God says, whether you are taken care by your father or your husband or your child, it is your charity, account of charity, that feeds you. They are just the instrument to give your uh, fruit of charity. If you have sin accumulated, You will be punished. Maybe as a punishment, they will have to die or they will leave you, and you don't have to bother about it. If you have the amount of charity more than the amount of sin, even though they leave you, you may end up getting more happiness. Who knows? There are many kids, uh, their parents desert their kids into orphanages, and rich people will adapt them. Now they are lucky. Even if their parents take care of their kids, it can't be that happy. So it is their charity that determines their fate. So there is no reason to worry about anything. So that's why always, and now we have lost everything. In heaven, we were so beautiful, so healthy that we didn't even have headache, and we were living in palaces made of golden bricks. Nonetheless, there were no windows or doors. Everything will be
Oh,
just open because nobody knows what stealing is. They were as pure as a newborn child. We will have thousands of servants. There won't be any CCTV cameras to look after them. But still, they don't even have that intuition to steal. So that's what heaven was. In order to enter that, we need to become like that right here. Because it is the character the soul carries from one body to another body. Now it is time for heaven to come. So it is time for us to change, to make us eligible to enter heaven. That's why God comes, give up all the human dictates, all the religions of your body. All religions are just for the body, not for the soul. The true religion of soul is peace. And God says, true nature of soul itself is peace. Actually, it comes from the abode of peace. That's where God resides, and we souls also resided along with Him. The only difference between souls and the Supreme Soul is we take birth and enter rebirth, several rebirths. God stays away from taking rebirth in heaven or hell. That's why in Gita it is mentioned, I stay away from both sorrow and happiness. Nonetheless, He has to come. Only He has the knowledge that nobody possesses to make us escape this sorrowful hell and to enter the blissful heaven. So just because God comes directly and gives this knowledge, we glorify God. If He never comes, why should we glorify God? Right? After the arrival of Jesus Christ, the world becomes more and more hellish, more and more sorrowful. After Muhammad, the world has become more and more sorrowful. But in heaven, it was not the case. So, if that were Quran and Bible and Srimad Bhagavad Gita were in fact the words of God, then the world would have become heaven. But what happens is the world has become quite the opposite. So it means it was not the word of God, but the word of Satan, which means the word of humans. So all God says now is to consider ourselves to be souls and to connect our mind to the Supreme Soul as much as possible. So, and also look each other as soul, so that by remembering God, our soul will be filled with the power of purity. Along with purity comes the happiness and peacefulness. So you will not have any wasteful thoughts. That's why kids don't have wasteful thoughts. Even if you make the uh, most beautiful man or woman stand in front of a kid, it will not get disturbed because they didn't become as body conscious as us. That's the difference. But in heaven, even adults won't get disturbed because they have that power of purity. So that power of purity is filled right here by remembering God. That's why God comes and gives this knowledge. So we need to become soul conscious by constantly remembering God. and also we need to look at each other as souls, so our vision doesn't fall on the body, so we wouldn't feel attracted to each other, so there won't be any lust. So that's the reason God says always look at your brother, the soul is our brother, not even sister, because only body becomes male or female. The soul, when it enters a male body, we call it male. When it enters a female body, we call it female. But God says your focus should only be on the soul, not on the body. So that's the direct teaching of God. Now we need to give this knowledge to everybody because nobody knows it. Only God has this. God comes only once. He takes an old man's body and gives this knowledge through him, and he names him Brahma. This Brahma is mentioned as Adam in Bible. So Adam was created out of clay. It means this body is made of clay or five elements. We were so body conscious that God gives his knowledge. So in Bible it is mentioned he breathes into the Adam's body and brings him alive. So what he has, what God has, God doesn't have a body to breathe. He has this knowledge to give. So with this knowledge of being soul, we become alive as soul again. So that's the direct teaching of God, and we need to give this knowledge to all brothers and sisters somehow. Now, how should we give this knowledge? While giving this knowledge to a Christian or Muslim or Hindu, we shouldn't have the thought that we are giving to Hindu or Christian or Muslim, or else we would think that they may not be eligible like that. So that's why God says, see only the soul, your brother. You are bringing alive your dead brother. So that's why it's mentioned in Bible that I will bring alive the dead ones from the graveyard. They take it directly. It's not so. In graveyard, only skeleton will be there. It's not like that. So bringing us back into soul consciousness. But if you don't uh, have this soul consciousness and mercifulness to give this knowledge, you will not worry about giving this knowledge, or else you will do this service only when you receive fame, only when you are given chance to speak in a television, only when you are in front of thousands of members, only then you will be willing to speak. That is body consciousness. So that is exactly what it means by David counting everybody, because he is body conscious. He derives happiness by seeing the crowd. That's actually mentioned here, because it's not about fight, it's about making people to belong to God. Now you should be worried about how many members are left without knowledge, not how many members I have given knowledge. So that is body consciousness, because still there are millions of people without this knowledge. That's what we should worry about, because they are our brothers and sisters. So this particular point has such a deep meaning. uh, that's why, and moreover, uh, here it is about war. For war, we need strength, we need manpower, and also the weapon power. So here you shouldn't believe in weapon, you should believe only in God. Even in Mahabharat it is mentioned so. In Mahabharat, Pandav, on behalf of Pandav, Arjun goes and seeks help from Krishna. Even Duryodhan goes and seeks help from Krishna. Krishna says, you both are related to me in the same manner, so I don't want to be partial. Now I separate myself from my uh, weaponry. So you choose between the two, whether you need me or my weapons. Duryodhan immediately says, I need your weapons. What am I going to do with you without weapons? Arjun says, even if you are willing to give your weapons, I don't need it. I need only you. So that weapon represents the creation of God, be it human, be it religion. Religion is not created by God, but it is created by His creation, humans. So we cling on to it. And whatever we do out of body consciousness, people will be willing to be with us, whether it's fight against one particular community, everybody will gather and fight against them. So there you believe in their strength instead of God. God says you should be ready to give up anything. If you are ready to give up anything, what's the need for war? Jesus Christ says, if your brother is willing to take your upper garment, you give him the garment that you wear in the waist also. If he slaps him in one cheek, show him the other cheek. That's the God's way. God doesn't ask you to fight with each other. That's Satan's way. So here, instead of following the God's way, he is deriving happiness by seeing what he possesses. That should not be the source of happiness. Our source of happiness should be the remembrance of God and by being soul conscious. So it has such a deep message which you will never find this teaching in any church or mosque or temple, for sure, except Brahma Kumaris. And now what happens is he takes the count, God gets angry, and he gives him three choices, whether it's going to be 3 years of famine, 3 months of war, or 3 days of uh, epidemic. So he chooses epidemic because he doesn't want to fall for humans because we can't predict how human mind works. But God is merciful. So let me choose the third one. So now the angel of God destroys people by giving diseases, and everybody dies in front of David, and he sees the angel standing between earth and heaven. He was so tall. Now he begs and says, it is me who asked to take the count. What have these sheep done? Because even animals get killed by the disease. Now you need to think of one thing. If he has so love for sheep, do you think he would have consumed sheep? He wouldn't, right? So that's the message. So it is there, right? If you read between words, you will know the truth. But nobody does that. So now he says, if you want to punish, punish me, not people or animals. Now God, because David humbles himself before God, God asks the angel to stop, and the angel asks David to build an altar to worship God in the grain floor of Ornon. So that's where the angel of God stands. Now David goes to Ornon and asks him to give this land to build an altar for God. Now Ornan says, okay, you can take it as you wish. Not only that, I will give you uh, sheep, cow to do sacrifice, and I will give you the grain, everything, because he is the king. Now King David says, no, just because I'm the king, you shouldn't give this. I will give you the money more than it's worth. So that's the underlying message. That's how humble a king should be. But are the politicians nowadays like that? They're not like that. Whatever they want, they will take. Right? That's the thing.
without
So
asking people.
without asking or at low cost.
Yeah.
Uh, and also we see politicians marrying somebody's wife. Everything is happening now because he's politician. Nobody can do it. So they are misusing their power. So to become a king, you should possess this quality of humbleness. You just have the responsibility to look after the people. It doesn't give you any extra power over them. That's the thing we need to understand. That's how God teaches us. That's why God says humbleness, humility our um, is our armor. It's our shield. In Kali Yuga,
Shield.
it's our shield. It's our shield of protection. Because if you use a word, even a word can trigger somebody to kill you. This happens everywhere. So you need to be very cautious that every single word that comes out of your mouth should be filled with humility, love, and peace. So should be your true nature. So that's why God gives this knowledge through Brahma Kumaris. It is only by listening to God's knowledge daily through Brahma Kumaris, which is available absolutely free of cost, and also by remembering God as much as possible, and also by seeing each other as soul, that you will slowly develop those divine qualities. So, and another thing, another secret, spiritual secret hidden in this story is God gives three choices: 3 years of famine, 3 months of war, 3 days of disease. So that's why God through Brahma Kumari says, if you suffer all your sin just in the form of disease, you are the luckiest, because 3 days of disease is equal to 3 years of famine. Just think about it. But we sympathize those who are bedridden, but we should be jealous of them because they are washing away their sins so fast.
They are better than us.
Yeah, they didn't know that. Only so that secret is hidden here. Uh, Corona has washed sins of many, right? We were constantly living in fear. At least then we would have believed in God, at least for a short time. Even atheists would have believed God. So, especially when we are deprived of every possession that we possess, we will automatically become humble. But instead, if you are already humble, there is no need for God to take anything away from us. So that's the secret. That's the universal law that God teaches. Om Shanti. So this very chapter itself is uh, has very strong message that not only Christians but Muslims, Hindus, and people, brothers and sisters of all religions should know. So let's finish right here. Om Shanti, brothers and sisters, for watching this so patiently, and keep watching. Please subscribe to this channel. You will get more and more divine secrets in our upcoming videos. We are also putting videos on Quran in a separate channel, and also we uh, speak about Hindu scriptures, Ramayana and Mahabharata. So keep in touch, you will benefit. We will guarantee you that. And thank you so much, sister, for spending your valuable time with us. Om
Thank you.
Shanti, sister.
Thank you for this chance.
Thank you, sister.